What's up everyone? Welcome back to my channel. So today is February's wrap up. I know it's super late. Today's like March 16th. Time just literally flies by, especially when you are busy like me. Okay, so this should be short and sweet and quick because I only read 4 books in February. And I think I definitely have, well, I have a book discussion podcast episode for one of them. So I will be going into more of those details and thoughts if you want to like listen to that podcast episode. And then I also have a spoiler vlog for one of them and a reading vlog for the other one. So there's only one where like you really didn't even know that I read it. Okay, so first let's jump over into the stats and I'll see you back here in just a second.
Okay, let's get into some stats for February. So I read 4 books in February. 2 of those were a combination. So the Midnight Library, I read the physical book and the audiobook along with it, as well as Layla by Colleen Hoover. I listened to the audiobook and also read the physical book. The Glass Castle, I only read the physical book, and Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson, I only listened to the audio. For Layla, I got the audiobook on Scribd, but I got the physical copy as a gift. And then for Grown and the Midnight Library, I got those audiobooks from Libby. I have been getting a lot of audiobooks from Libby, and I am so thankful that the library system has had these amazing audiobooks. I also was gifted the physical copy of The Midnight Library and The Glass Castle, and I was also gifted a copy of Grown, and I also bought a copy. The genres for this month, Grown technically is under thriller, but for myself, I kind of view it more as a dark contemporary, but I don't have that on this graph, so I just put it under thriller, like how it's categorized on like Goodreads and the story graph. And then Layla is technically a paranormal romance. The Glass Castle is nonfiction, it's a memoir, and The Midnight Library is actually fantasy, so I'm surprised that I read a fantasy book this month. For star ratings, I gave Grown 4.5 stars. The Midnight Library and The Glass Castle, I gave 4 stars, and Layla was only like a 3.5 star for me. As far as authors go, The Glass Castle and The Midnight Library were both new authors for me. I have read Colleen Hoover before, and I have read Tiffany D. Jackson before, and then Tiffany D. Jackson is a Black author. And just some extra stats that I keep track of in my bullet journal. 3 of the books were published in 2020, so that's Grown, The Midnight Library, and Layla, whereas The Glass Castle was published in 2005. Grown is also the only young adult novel. All the others are adults, or technically I guess Layla could probably be considered new adult. And my total page count for February was 1,261 pages.
Okay, so I read Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson, and this is the book that Gwen and I discussed over on the Talk Bookish podcast, and so you definitely need to check that out because we had a guest on that one. It's Jessie from Reading with Jess, and it was a really great episode. I really liked this book. I gave it 4 stars. For a young adult book, like that is a really good rating because I am not a huge young adult reader or lover, but Tiffany D. Jackson I think is my favorite young adult author. I love how she writes really dark like YA novels where she kind of dives into like the nitty-gritty. This book is about Enchanted, who is a teenager and she really loves singing, and so she actually goes to this like singing competition and gets noticed by a like really popular R&B artist named Corey. He ends up taking her under his wing and kind of like showing her the ropes and says, you know, I'm gonna get you an album, like, you know, come with me, blah blah blah, all of that. Her parents like sign off on this stuff saying, you know, she's gonna be able to go with him and do all of this album stuff. It turns out that he is not that great of a person, and it gets really dark, and a lot of people actually said that this reminds them of the R. Kelly story, which I actually haven't. I know that there's like a Netflix documentary about it, but I actually am not familiar with that. But I know that Tiffany D. Jackson says in the book that it is not about that story. This is actually an Own Voices story written like from her own experiences. There are a lot of trigger warnings in this book, so definitely look them up before you either read them yourself or give them to a young adult to read. Now, this book was actually marketed as a thriller, but I do not really agree with that. I think it's just more dark contemporary for young adult. I do not really think it's a thriller because if you're like looking for a thriller in it, you're gonna be disappointed. I actually had to kind of listen to the first half of this twice because the first half I was thinking it was a thriller and I was waiting for it and I was like bored. So I went back and started it all over again, and I appreciated it much more knowing that I wasn't really gonna get a thriller aspect out of it. So I definitely suggest you do that if you haven't read this book yet. I'll just remind you one more time that you definitely need to go listen to that book discussion on the podcast, because this is all I'm going to tell you about my thoughts. We go in so much depth into our thoughts, what we liked and disliked about the book, so definitely go check that out. I will have it linked down below. Okay, the next book that I read was The Glass Castle, and this one I also gave 4 stars to. I did also watch the movie because it is a movie. Now, I did this for my Reading Recs Sent by You series, which is a series where you guys can actually send me a little video clip recommending a book for me to read, and I will record my reaction and picking up the book and reading the book all in a vlog. So it's like a reading vlog dedicated to you. And so far I have done 2 of those and they have turned out really, really great. So I'm really excited to do the one in March. I haven't done it yet, but if you want to send me a video, I can have the details down below in order how to do that. Plus I'll have a video right here that describes the whole process as well. But this is a memoir and I really enjoyed it because it definitely reminded me of the book Educated, which is one of my favorites. I just love memoirs that just talk about really dark, crazy lives of people growing up. I don't know, like the more nitty gritty it is, the more I enjoy it. This one did have some slow parts, which is why I rated it 4 stars, but you can hear all my thoughts in that reading vlog and you can hear my thoughts about the movie as well. Okay, the next book that I read was Layla by Colleen Hoover. Yes, I finally read Layla and it was just okay. I think I rated it like 3 or 3.5 stars. I don't remember exactly what my rating was, but it's definitely just very weird, different book. It is a paranormal romance, and that just doesn't even describe like how crazy it is. You know, let's just give it to Colleen Hoover for being like original and creative, writing a book like that, but it just didn't exactly work for me. I didn't really enjoy the characters, especially Leeds as the main character. I was not a fan of him, but I'm not gonna say any more because I do have a spoiler vlog for that. So if you haven't watched that, there are spoilers in it. I tell you at what page I'm at, but you can check that out right here. And last but not least, the book that you probably didn't even know that I read was The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. This book actually wasn't even really on my radar. My friend Erin had messaged me and she was like, have you read this? And I was like, nope, I haven't. And she was like, you need to read it right now. I was like, okay, like I'll look at my library. And then I was like, I'm number like 43 at my library. And she was kind enough to literally ship me the book and it was like on my front porch in like 2 days. So that made me pick it up and I actually did really enjoy it. I gave it 4 stars, which I had a lot of 4-star reads this month. If you like time travel, alternate reality books, then this one is definitely for you. It is pretty dark though. Definitely has a lot of trigger warnings because this is about this girl who wants to commit suicide because she's not happy with her life. Before she would even go through that action, she gets transferred to this like fantasy, it is a fantasy book, but like this place called the Midnight Library, where it's a library with all of these different books, and all of the books are different lives that she could actually choose to be in if she wanted to. It's like every single time you make a decision, there's like an alternate reality of you from that decision, and on and on and on. So there's definitely all of these lives where like maybe one she was an astronaut, maybe one she was a musician, maybe one she was a doctor. And so she tries out a bunch of different lives, and I did really like that aspect of the book because you actually follow, it's not just like told that she goes into these lives, you actually follow her as she picks all of these different lives, and you figure out what she likes about it, what she doesn't like about it, what makes her sad about it. And I really loved the story behind this book. So if you like books that kind of make you think about what would you do in that situation, or if you could pick a different life, what would you do, what would you change, then you definitely need to pick this one up because it was really great. Okay, that's it. That's all the books that I read in February, but in March I have read a bunch so far. It's only halfway through March, and so far I've completed 5 books. I also DNF'd a book that I want to talk about, and I'm almost done with a 6th book. So I'm definitely going to have lots of books to talk about in my March wrap up. So if you like what you see here, definitely hit that subscribe button so you can check out my future videos. All right, that's it. I will see you guys very soon in another video. Bye everyone.
We got time on our side. We're in a state of hope.